As promised, welcome to the new improved Ag channel. On this particular channel, we're going to talk about things that no other Ag channel is talking about. And we're going to start from the beginning with simple, shorter videos. That way people don't lose their track of attention. And we'll continue on. And before we get 50 million comments on the next thing, stay tuned, as there will be a continuation and series of videos explaining a lot of things about agriculture, again, not heard anywhere else, that may be eye-openers and answer many of you's questions. So for the first video of the new channel, I wanted to take a look at an article that just surfaced here on March 3rd, 2025 on AgWeb. Rollins promises grain farmers improving ag economy as top priority. Well, the number one reason I think many have contacted me asking what my thoughts are on grain markets going forward, which I personally would have thought that we would already seen bank collapses and that the Fed would have had to cave. I did not personally expect them to roll out a bank term funding program, which would just kick the can on down the road. But anyway, besides that, yes, the ag economy is absolutely terrible. As the article proceeds, and what she describes as what's going on in the ag industry, ultimately taking Trump's administration's credit for the agriculture economic assistance, which wasn't even passed by them. And whoop-de-doo, how do you take credit for something that was passed into law already? But it goes on and goes on down where there's absolutely no answers, but to finally sum it up with, we just need to get a new farm bill going, which again has been kicked down the road. Later in the article, it notes that the farm agricultural deficit was at $49 billion, and if you don't understand what's going on there, it's the dollar. Supply and demand of the dollar. As the Federal Reserve has pinched everyone, they've been in a tightening that's reduced the supply. And yes, I know there is more of it that goes into it than that, but that's basically what's happened. It's reduced supply. The dollar has risen against other currencies, which is its exchange rate, and that makes it easier to import things. You can buy cheap things because it only takes one of our dollars to equal many of somebody else's dollars, and that makes their products cheap to import. But it kills the ability for us to export. Drill baby drill was a Sarah Palin slogan. You can find it all over the internet on very old articles. This is a chart from the EIA. This is United States, USA, crude oil production. And as you can see, we've risen, records. Cost to produce the oil minus what it sells for. The difference, that's your margin. As supply increases, and that usually brings down the cost what you sell it for. And when things become out of check, you can enter a situation like agriculture right now where the cost to produce it can outweigh what it sells for on the market. And that's what oil producers don't want to do. And that's precisely the information that Donald Trump got once he was elected. He campaigned on this drill baby drill, Sarah Palin motto. And when he was elected, he immediately asked OPEC to increase production. And U.S. shale producers are interested in increase or supply. So you can read the article for yourself. And it goes on to talk about how most of the CEOs of the oil companies told Donald that they're not going to whip up production to flood the market and produce at no margin or lose money. As of making this video, it's March 4th, and the news was out from yesterday stating the White House is proposing drafts to lift sanctions against Russia. Following, we have a crude oil decline, and OPEC saying that they'll increase production. Depending upon the price to produce oil, and depending on what kind of oil it is or where, you can find it all over the internet about what it costs to produce. You can figure out it costs somewhere around what it's going to sell for to produce it. And if you eliminate this type, that puts more pressure on this oil. It's all available supply, and it's how much demand there is globally. That's the only two things that really matter. And then you have to figure out what's going to produce and what cost you have to be able to produce it at. So let's do a timeline here. We have Drill Baby Drill, a Sarah Palin slogan that he campaigns on. He wins the election. He immediately begs OPEC to increase production. They say no. U.S. shale producers say no because we're going to lose money if we flood our market because we're not much of a margin left now, depending on what kind of oil it is. So he moves on to the minerals deal, which includes oil. That blows up, so fail here, and so he just says, piss on it, let's just get Russia to do it and relieve the sanctions. So what's this all telling you when you put it in the timeline? Trump campaigned on lowering oil costs, whether it's below cost of production or not. Doesn't give a shit. He wants cheaper oil. He wants to flood the market, and he is willing to do whatever it takes and whatever crooked deal it takes to get that done. Probably because the midterms in 2026 will be here before you know it, and he wants to win. Sustainable aviation fuels. Make sure you research it, the SAF standard, and that'll have tax credits. And if you go in on this, and it's right from the energy website right here, and you can read about how the SAF's feedstocks, corn grain, oil seeds, algae, other fats, oils, and greases, agricultural residues, which means like corn stalks or stover or something of that nature, forestry residues, that's slash, wood mill waste, municipal solid streams, waste manures, blah, 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 dedicated energy crops, which there are some other crops you can grow that do produce good things for your biofuels. And it goes on here to talk about which things can be used the most, and if you Google about who's participating in this, basically global in the idea that it will end up reducing. It's a carbon neutral for airplanes, what it comes down to. And you can go into the Ukraine, UK, and starting in 2025, 2% of you can't even talk here today. 2% of aviation fuels. The airport's supposed to be SAF. The percentage climbs every 5 years to reach 6% in 2030, 34% in 2040, 70% in 2050. And you can go back up to the United States or look at any other country you want. Blenders, credits, tax credits, etc. And then when you go to Trump's policy to try to find out anything about it, future SAF sectors unclear under Trump's policy. Administration approves aviation fuel, and senators here on DTN reported SAF legislation introduced to the Senate one day after Donald Trump signs all federal regulations 60 review, including the 45Z Clean Fuels Act. That's what we need to get the 45Z deal pushed through. And you can read about, you guys can Google these yourself, but you can go on to read about what kind of bills they're promoting. So as previously just shown, we can pretty much prove that Trump's doing whatever it takes to flood the oil market, and he's unclear on the SAF standard as well as the 45Z tax credit. We don't know where he stands or what he's going to do with it. But if you flood the one, what's the incentive to use the other unless it's mandated by law? And that kind of offsets the other. In my personal opinion, I believe that you should promote the SAF before you even consider flooding an oil market, because if you promote one, it takes pressure off the other. So while this all occurs, we have the Farm Bill in limbo, which needs to be passed as it will promise a future for uncertain farmers. And my guess, it probably just includes direct payments. Just an opinion based on what I've been reading. And with a lot of arguing, budget cutting, everything else going on, I don't really see the budgets getting taken care of in this country. And I sure as hell don't see a solution, because the solution would be to promote the SAF. So unless that bill is included in the Farm Bill, just prepare for more of the same as we had before. Direct payments, uncertain future, and
very volatile oil market, because if you flood it, you will inevitably run producers broke, and then that puts a lack of supply out there on the market, which thus causes the high price to go higher. I mean, that's exactly what happened during the pandemic with the OPEC 2020 plus deal, which we will talk about in future videos. So that's the first video that I'm posting on this channel, and what I kind of see as a big picture to the farm bill and some things that could cure or at least help with prices.